Hello and welcome to the Excuse Buster Show, where we bust through the things that can get in your way of feeling how you want to feel and living the life that you want to live. I'm Lizzie Williamson, and if the way you eat or what you're eating is holding you back in some way, then you want to stay tuned, because my guest today is here to help you slow down and do what she has titled her book, which is Making Peace Before You Eat. She is a very passionate whole foods cook. She is an amazing mummy of a little one that you might see running through here. She has founded and authored her first book, Love, Life, and Gluten Free. That's that one. This is the second one, if you can believe it. And she is also the founder of an amazing annual event called Wellness Woman. She cooks at cooking classes and retreats, and if you have ever experienced her food, you will know just how special it is. It is quite an experience. This is Angie Cowan.
Hello. That was like the best intro ever. I'm like, wow, that's me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Here. So good to be here with you. When people meet you and they find out what you do, or they know what you do, what do you most hear people say to you or ask you?
I think the one thing that I hear from people when they experience my way of cooking and teaching is A, oh, that's so simple. I didn't know how simple it was. And B, I feel so good. And that's something that's always been at the forefront of my intention, is how can I create a space where people can feel so nourished that they leave feeling just so good.
Because so many of us, and myself included, have struggled or struggle with food and eating. Where do you think it is that we have lost our way a bit?
Well, I think A, we're so busy, and I think what we've made important is all of those the doing things, so career and advancing ourselves, and I think just generally being busy to distract ourselves from just being. And I think that becomes the focus rather than the simplicity of gathering with yourself or gathering with your loved ones and having a meal and having that simple life being what's important.
Because I hear from a lot of women who struggle with things like they feel like they eat too much. There's too much sugary food. They've got, they emotionally eat. So where do you begin to slow down?
I think the first thing to get is that there's nothing wrong with how we are. It's just that it doesn't always work. So I think when we stay inside of a loop of there's something wrong with what I'm doing, it's very hard to shift out of it, because it's a cycle of there's something wrong. And then it becomes emotional eating. And that's a loop. And so there's nothing wrong. That's the first thing to get. How we are is how we are, and we're a product of our upbringing, of our society, of the things that we've seen on TV, media, etc., etc.
How did you get to that? Have you always felt that, or has that been something that you learned?
No, I was the typical tween struggling with maintaining a tiny frame, so I thought I'd be loved and accepted. Like, that's just, I was standard. And I think that's why I got into what I got into, is because I was a dancer like you were, and I had this tiny little frame, and then I hit 17, I hit puberty really late, and I started getting all these curves, and I was like, what is going on? I can't recognize myself. For a little while it was great and a novelty, but then it became I'm putting on weight, or I'm retaining water and I wasn't digesting food properly. So there was two things that was going on. One, I wasn't recognizing my physical body anymore, and there was something wrong. I was like, this is a problem. So I need to limit what I eat to maintain this small frame. The second thing that was going on at exactly the same time is I was having digestive issues. And so what I was eating wasn't actually nourishing my body or my mind, and actually what I found myself in was a state of depression and anxiety. And so it was twofold. And you go chicken or egg, not sure, but they do work together. So when you feel good about yourself inside, you actually look in the mirror and you see beauty. But when you feel poorly and negative about yourself, you look in the mirror and you see negative, or all the things that you don't love about yourself. So that's where I started from, and I started from illness, and I started from these, massive digestive issues where I was, I had glandular fever and tonsillitis for an entire year, and 9 rounds of antibiotics, and a really poor mental space. That's the thing that I was most, and I think even today, like when I get into that poor mental space or that loop of there's something wrong and life's not feeling good, the first place I look to, I've got 2 places I look to. I go, what am I eating? What's not working for me? Clean up my diet as quickly as possible. And it's hard when you're in the space of, it's not working, I'm feeling so unhappy and my life is not a great place, or the situation's really affecting me. It's really hard to look to food, because food doesn't even come into that conversation for most of us when we're feeling down about ourselves. And yet, happy tummy, happy mind. So cleaning up the digestive system, adding in lots of probiotic foods, which have us feel good mentally, makes a huge difference.
Because our instinct is to go for the other food, for the food that's not going to make us feel good,
the
but
comfort
we think it will.
food, absolutely. The chocolate, the sugar, but all that does is feed whatever imbalances in the gut and keep us in that loop. So it's a really interesting one. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is communication. What haven't I communicated in my life that needs to be communicated? Where am I lacking in power? Where am I feeling the victim? And addressing all of those situations from a perspective of there's nothing wrong, but what's going on here? So the two actually work hand in hand, and sometimes you can address it first, getting those big issues or getting them resolved through communication. Suddenly it makes eating good food much easier, and that block, Noah, she's trying to crawl up. Come here, Baba. Come here. Come over here. Come on, kitty. Yeah, so addressing it twofold, and it's a very holistic approach to looking at well-being. Come here, Baba. We're gonna pull this gorgeous baby in the frame. Yeah. And let go. Here we go. This is Noah. She's 9 months old, and she's gonna crawl right out of my lap, no doubt. Yeah. So it's like you said, it's like our natural pull when we are feeling depressed or down or anxious is actually to look to food for comfort. And what you view comfort food to be is likely to be things like sugar, biscuits, anything like that. But actually, if you look at the true sense of what nourishment is actually a feeling. So go, how do you feel, like in terms of wanting to feel nourished? I'll go to a stew. A stew is actually very nourishing to me, like vegetables, it leaves me feeling good. So you kind of open up your perspective and go, okay, so my commitment is to feel nourished. What is going to lead me there? Is having a chocolate chip cookie going to lead me there? Maybe one will actually bring some joy to you, but having a packet, that's not going to do that. That's going to leave you feeling depleted. Yeah.
So how did you begin this journey? What were the steps that you took?
Yeah, so the first thing that I did was, instead of looking at food as this way to keep me thin or have me get fat, so that was how I viewed food before. It was kind of like the enemy. Yeah. I went, this is not working. That was after a year of 9 rounds of antibiotics, and I went, okay, my game is now, how am I going to nourish my body? That is my game, because I am so sick and tired of being sick and tired. So that's my game. And that game is my life game. And I can't say that I always win at that game. It's not about always being perfect. That's not the game. Being perfect is not the game. How can I nourish myself is the game. It's a very different conversation. So sometimes I do have a gluten-free chocolate chip cookie. Gluten is not something I play with. Like, I will always have gluten-free because I know that works for my body. But sometimes I do have a gluten-free chocolate chip cookie and I enjoy it. But eating a packet, that's not going to work for me because that doesn't fit inside of nourishment.
Yeah. When someone says to you, I want to go gluten-free, what do you say to them?
Cool. Crowd out the gluten. That's what I would say. If you look at the spectrum of what's available in terms of food, 99.99% of it is actually gluten-free. We just, for the sake of preservation and shelf life and things like that, have put gluten in everything that's processed. The beautiful thing about going gluten-free, if you do it from a whole food perspective, is you're going to be including more vegetables in your diet than you ever have before, because vegetables make an amazing base for everything. And so you actually end up, if you do it from a whole food perspective, and of course there is a processed version of gluten-free that you can do, which is not going to nourish. But if you do a whole food perspective, you're just going to be crowding out the gluten with so many amazing, beautiful, vibrant vegetables. Some cooked, some raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when someone says you can be an unhealthy vegan, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be a very unhealthy gluten-free. Yeah, definitely. And especially as the market becomes more filled with products available for gluten intolerant or celiac people, then it becomes easier to just kind of rest back and go, okay, cool, I'm going to get those chocolate chip cookies. And whereas when I started, and when many people that are celiac in this country started, there was nothing available. Like nothing. If you went out to a restaurant, you could have a salad with no dressing and a piece of grilled fish, but you had to ask them not to batter it, like not to put any flour on it. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah.
So it's very different today than it was, say, 12, 14 years ago when I started. And it makes a huge difference not to have the stuff available, because then you had to make it yourself.
Yeah.
And when you've got so many easy reach products, it makes it a little bit harder, because you have to bring in your willpower and your commitment. And that's why I always come back to, and I asked you before, what's the intention of the show? Like, what is your intention? Why? Why choose A over B? You have to have a clear intention as to why. Yeah. So making peace before you eat was, I suppose, getting to the place where you can just make peace with what's in front of you. The food that's in front of you, not like, oh, this is going to make me fat or unhappy, or just be like, you know what, I'm going to celebrate this meal in front of me. I'm going to celebrate the farmers that, grew the vegetables. I'm going to celebrate the earth that provided the food and the nourishment for me. I'm going to celebrate the shop assistant that sold the food. I'm just going to choose to celebrate that and move into a space of gratitude. And that's my commitment, because focusing on everything that's wrong in the world or what you're unhappy with is just going to keep that loop, keep that cycle.
So you decided to write this book because you've obviously got a strong message there, something that you want to say. And when you sit down for the process of making peace before you eat, what does that practice look like for you?
It's so simple. It's like I can talk all the words around it, but basically it's like I sit down with my meal and I don't just see the lumps of food on my plate. I see beautiful colors, I see beautiful shapes, and I see a process, and I see a web of people that have come together to bring this food to my plate.
Amazing.
And I allow myself to feel grateful for that.
Wow.
Yeah. And that is making peace. It's just training the mind. It's focusing the mind on what we do have rather than what we don't have.
Yeah. And why is it that you think that we don't do that?
It's interesting. I was running a workshop a couple of weeks ago. The mind is a really tricky network, for lack of another descriptive word. And when we are in our adrenals, the tricky part about it is that it tells us we don't have time, because we're in this short breathing cycle. We're in almost a panic alert station, so we're in survival. And in survival, there is no time. You have to act and move now. So we're actually in our adrenals, in our nervous system response, thinking that there is no time, and your brain will be adamant that there is no time.
That's right.
So you're kind of having this internal dialogue where your mind's like, no, there is no time for this. We have to go, otherwise we're going to be late and we're not going to have time to do this and this and this and this. And it's a lie, because all it takes is 1 minute to take 3 to 5 deep breaths to start, because that's how we come out of the fight flight. Slow down our breathing, move into a space of gratitude, and practice that. It's a tricky thing. I want to use other words, but it's a tricky space.
But that sounds like a lovely first thing to do, that 3 to 5 breaths before you eat.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite breathing techniques that I do often. Like, this will be my go-to, even if I'm driving in this traffic and I notice I'm in high alert. And what's really good to get is how it looks like for you. And I'll ask you in a second what that looks like. But for me, my breathing will be a bit short. my heart rate will be up, and my mind space will be very fast. So I'll be having loads and loads of thoughts at the same time. For me, that is a surefire sign that I'm in my adrenals and that there's overload in my nervous system. So when I notice that happening, as quickly as possible, I bring in this particular breathing technique. So I inhale for 4, hold my breath for 7 counts, and then exhale for 8 counts. And that just slowly brings me back into my body. So what are some of the signs that you notice when you're in when you're on? Yeah.
Well, I go straight to overwhelm.
Yeah.
I think it's from when my girls were really little and I was really deep in drowning in that feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah.
So my brain just goes whoom, straight back there. Oh God, I can't cope. I can't do this. Yeah, that's that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So inhaling for 4 and then holding that breath for 7 counts and then exhaling for 8. And what that does for me is it just slows me down very gradually. It just slows me down. And having kids, to all you mamas out there, you're amazing for starters, because I know. I've noticed going into that nervous state, I go there much faster with a little one. And I think it's purely a function of not sleeping adequately, for 9 months or even when it was 4 months or 6 months or whatever it was, and you're already at a back step and you're breastfeeding, so you're already, if you're not nourishing yourself adequately, you just go straight into that adrenal fatigue. Was that in your mouth? That's really special. It was a gum nut, people. A gum nut. It takes that much more discipline to slow down, because the mind is so tricky. It really wants you to believe you don't have enough time, because you're in survival, and in a fight-flight situation, that's survival.
Yeah.
You're not going to stop and make gratitude. You're going to go.
Yeah.
Because you've got a lion chasing you. There's no difference. Yeah.
So we've got that we don't need to be fixed.
Yeah.
We've got that idea of slowing down, of looking at the food that is in front of us. And what else do you think we need to be doing?
Cultivating gratitude. Like I just touched on it before, but it's training the mind to focus on what we do have rather than what we don't. And we've all been there, every single one of us. There is no one on a pedestal. If there is anyone in your life that's on a pedestal, take them down, please. It's not a fair place to put them. Everyone is dealing with something. All of us go into these loops of, my life is hard, this is challenging, and we stay in that cycle for some time. Gratitude is the most beautiful practice, because it is just a practice and you don't have to be anywhere to start it. And the more we actually practice gratitude, the easier it is to actually practice gratitude. The quicker we can step into the heart space, because it's a muscle and we just develop it. So sitting down and then focusing on what we're grateful for, it just the most beautiful sensation in the body. And it just trains us to go, wow, look what I have.
Yeah.
How lucky am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really wonderful practice to do, and unfortunately it's kind of a bit like exercise. When we need it the most, it can feel the hardest to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's why meal times are so great, because you've got at least three in a day.
Yeah.
The periods where you do intersect your life and go, cool, I'm going to eat something. And for many of us, it's on the run. So just to stop and take a deep breath, or take 5 deep breaths and go, thank you for what I have. Thank you for this meal. Thank you, farmers. Thank you, earth. Thank you, bees. Thank you for what I have. Yeah. It just interrupts your day, and it takes 1 minute, 2 minutes.
And then I guess you're looking at your choc chip cookie, and maybe just taking that moment helps you go, oh, perhaps this isn't what's going to nourish me.
Yeah.
Perhaps this isn't what it is that I need.
Yeah.
You touched on that back at the beginning when you started talking about how do I need to nourish myself?
Yeah.
And finding that answer. What does that process look like?
Well, I think when we stop. What's going on?
No, you want cuddles?
Yeah. So when we stop, we allow a little bit of space between us and that moment. And that little bit of space can help us make decisions that are going to nourish us. So we're slowing down slightly. We can look at what's in front of us, and when we get the stories out of the way, and there's so many stories, and you know, I come from a family where there's so much emotional eating in my family.
Okay.
And there were so many, what I feel like negative opinions about our physical body or how thin we needed to be. So I really understand that process. Like, I really understand how hard it is to interrupt. And it's still, I think once you have that way of thinking, it never goes away.
Yeah.
Ever.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think especially in our society today, where we're bombarded with a particular frame or an image of a woman and what they're supposed to look like, it's very hard not to go into comparison. So I'm not going to say that that's not going to happen in your life. It's most probably going to happen, and maybe every day. But the thing to get is, what is your commitment? And when your commitment is looking thin, then you will reach for foods that will work for that. So it might be low carb, or it might be low sugar, but it will never be as a nourishment if your focus or your intention is about losing weight. You won't look for things that are going to deeply nourish you. You'll look for things that are going to help you lose weight.
Yes,
So
and then you probably also look, subconsciously you end up going for that self-sabotage.
Yeah, that's right. And for many people, that's how it looks. So where you focus the mind is where the mind will go. So if then your intention becomes nourishment, what you'll look for is foods that are going to nourish you. And inadvertently, you might end up losing weight. But that's like a secondary. But what you will do is feel good about yourself, because when your gut is happy, your mind is happy, and all the research is there now. That used to be a concept, and I knew it to be true because that's what I did to myself. Like, I fed myself well, and I saw the shift. And even today, like, I have to be honest with you, it's not like I feel great all the time. This is not something that I still don't deal with. I do slip into cycles where I don't feel good about myself, or I'm lethargic or tired. But it's about what's your intention and coming back to what's going to actually nourish you, rather than what's going to help you lose weight. And if that's at your front, if that's your focal point, you will always eat food that is more nourishing to your body, and inadvertently nourishing to your mind as well.
What's one of your favourite things to cook in here?
Oh, at the moment there's a cauliflower mince that I've been doing.
Oh,
so we use
yes.
cauliflower. So this book is entirely plant-based, and it's not that I'm a vegan. I did it actually as a celebration of vegetables. It's just vegetables on vegetables and vegetables. Like, there's so many amazing vegetables. So cauliflower mince, actually right there.
Yeah.
And I do it with a guacamole on top with lime, and it is just gorgeous. I'm trying to look for a photo. Actually, that one does. And this one's done as like a nachos. So I've done it on sweet potato wedges. You've got the cauliflower mince with the guacamole, and then like a really beautiful tahini dressing, which is kind of like
So good.
cheesy. Oh, it's ridiculous. It's so yummy. Also love the sweet potato hot pot. I did that one at a lot of retreats, and every time I do it, people are like, can I have the recipe? And up until writing the book, I didn't have the recipe. It was all in my head. Banana scoffins.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're like funny little banana scones.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, really yummy. There's a lot of really delicious recipes. But it's just I think, in this picture really celebrates it. Let me see if I can get to it again. It's just like a celebration of vegetables. It's like, celebrate. Like, we feel good when we eat more vegetables because it helps us clean out our digestive system. We just do. And people that come away on retreat with me, and if they spend any amount of time, they'll notice most people will have their digestions come back into balance, or they'll be going to the bathroom more regularly. And people will always pull me aside and go, oh my God, I went to the bathroom. And that's such a big deal. And for me, I'm not someone that doesn't talk about bowel movements. I do, because that is a representation of how our digestion is, if we've got good bowel movements. So it's always going to be part of the conversation. So I always celebrate with people.
Oh, good.
Yeah, definitely.
Celebrate the poo.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you eat something, well, certainly, okay, I'll speak for myself. When I eat something that you have made, like I said before, it feels a very special experience. What is going on with you when you cook? Because this is more than just some food in the pot and then serve it. You can feel something else when you eat this food that you've made?
That's really beautiful. It makes me emotional because that's always my intention. So I believe that we're all energetic beings, and what people actually feel is our intention. So my intention is always to nourish, to deeply nourish people and to have people feel safe. And when we feel safe, we can let go and relax and move into our hearts. So that's always my intention, and I love cooking. Like, I actually love cooking, and I love creating a space for people to come together to feel nourished. That's actually hugely, in terms of what's important in my life, that ticks many, many boxes. So I believe, like, I trained as a yoga teacher before I got into food, and I believe this is how I practice yoga or how I teach yoga. Yeah.
That intention, helping people feel safe, it sounds like such a game changer when it comes to food, because I think many of us are there with food, and it's quite a fearful experience, and dread kicking yourself about what you've eaten, and that idea of feeling safe. This is beautiful.
It's beautiful, and when you do think about how we feel when we feel safe, that's when the heart rests down. That's when the digestion rests down. And a really big part of this book was helping people feel safe and calm and peaceful. I'm gonna feed. We're gonna do that. Here we go.
Little one.
So Noah feels safe now. Yeah. So it is huge. Like, feeling safe is huge. When we feel safe, we can rest. And I think a lot of us eat because we're not feeling entirely safe.
I think that's true.
And the weight of food going in, it grounds us as well. Like, it's a weight moving through our system, and I think that's why actually a lot of people eat a lot of meat. Is because it's quite heavy, and it helps us ground. It helps us feel earth to the floor. And there's many other ways of doing it. Breathing exercises, taking off your shoes and feeling, the grass beneath our feet, and they're very practical reasons. But I think when we're in that fight or flight or anxiety, that we just need something to ground us, to anchor us back into our body.
And nourishment is just the way to go.
Absolutely. I think when we take on the intention of nourishment, we start looking further as well. So yes, there's the food that we eat, but there's the thoughts that we think, and there's the TV shows that we watch, because everything is food. Everything is food. What we feed our mind, that's food, and that becomes our thoughts. What we eat, obviously, is food. What we see is food. Everything is food. What we read is food.
That's your Oprah tweetable moment.
Yeah, everything is food. Everything is food. So then you start looking further afield as well, and you go, okay, cool, what's in my water? Is that going to nourish me? Is chlorine going to nourish me? I don't know. Is going for a bushwalk going to nourish me? Yes. For me, that's incredibly nourishing. So you start looking at your activities as well. What's going to nourish me?
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Aww.
So many, not only beautiful words of wisdom, but also there's a lot of things in here that you have said that you can easily start making part of your day. Not that they're necessary easy things to keep up, but they're quite easy to do, and that practice of it, I'm sure, helps keep those things up, make that habit, and also what you can just keep coming back to as well.
Can I offer just one more thing? I know I can feel we're wrapping up, but tool basket. Create a little tool basket for yourself and put it on the fridge. And it's when I get overwhelmed, what's in my tool basket? It might be a breathing exercise, it might be taking off my shoes and walking in on the grass. But put things in your tool basket that you know work for you. And then when you get overwhelmed, you'll catch that sight on your phone or on the fridge. They're your tools.
Beautiful. And choose a tool. Get it out.
Exactly.
And use it to help you.
Exactly. Come back to nourishment.
Yeah, come back to nourishment. And beautiful. Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
honey.
Angie. You can get this beautiful book, Making Peace Before You Eat, you could Google it, I suppose.
Yeah,
Where's the best place to get it?
lovelife.glutenfree.com, so our website.
The links are up there. When you're watching this, you'll see them there. multi-purpose chocolate sauce. Here we go.
You can make hot chocolate out of that.
That's beautiful. And yes, you'll see all the links there, how you can connect with Angie and look at her beautiful recipes, mindset, and all these wonderful things that she has to say. So yes, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you for another episode of The Excuse Buster very soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you later. Thank you.
Cool.
Mwah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah.
You were wonderful.
Yay.
Big clap. Yay.